Absolute rulers in France were monarchs who had complete control over their country. They had the power to make laws, collect taxes, and make decisions without anyone else's input.
Henry V of France accomplishments include ending the French Wars of Religion, passing the Edict of Nantes, stabilizing the economy, and centralizing the government. His legacy includes being remembered as one of France's greatest monarchs, and his policies helped to lay the foundation for France's rise to power. Henry V of France implemented several economic policies that helped to stabilize his economy and promote trade. He encouraged the growth of industry and commerce and also invested in infrastructure projects such as roads and bridges to improve transportation. These policies helped to increase the prosperity of the country and make it more influential in Europe. Henry V of France engaged in several wars during his rule over France, including the French Wars of Religion and the Franco-Spanish War. He was successful in most of these conflicts, which helped to increase the power and influence of France in Europe. The outcome of these wars also helped to stabilize the country and promote economic growth. Henry V of France passed the Edict of Nantes, which granted religious freedom to the Huguenots. The decision helped to end the religious wars in France and strengthen the power of the monarchy by unifying the country under a single ruler.
And we'll know.
Henry V of France was an absolute ruler because he has a complete control over the government and the people. He also had a strong military, which helped him maintain power. Also, bureaucracy, the government, and creating a strong bureaucracy to enforce his policies. He also passed laws that limited the power of the nobility and strengthened the power of the monarchy.
His chief foreign policy objective was to check the power of the Otto-Spanish Habsburg dynasty. Although he was a Roman Catholic cardinal, he did not hesitate to make alliances with the Protestant rulers in attempting to achieve this goal. Cardinal Richelieu waged war on the Huguenots at La Rochelle, and after 2 years of fighting, ended with the Edict of Grace, which stripped the Huguenots of all political power, military organization, and land holdings, but gave them religious freedom. Alarmed by the Emperor Ferdinand II's influences, incited Sweden to attack. He also agreed to aid King Gustavus II Adolphus of Sweden with financial subsidies. France was not openly at war with empire, so aid was given secretly. Cardinal Richelieu's policy involved two primary goals: centralization of power in France in opposition to the Habsburg dynasty. Richelieu's decisions to suppress the influence of feudal nobility and levy taxes targeted mostly at the commoners made him a hated figure among the nobility and the peasantry. In the end, Cardinal Richelieu helped strengthen the French monarchy largely by weakening those who might oppose the king and strengthening those who could support him. In the eyes of Richelieu and Louis XII, the biggest threats to power of the monarchy were the Huguenots and the nobles, like said before. He extended the use of the intendants, commissioners, for each of France's 32 districts. The power of the ruler was absolute and prevented civil war. In all, he was a very good leader, but he was not a fan of most of his subjects. Cardinal Richelieu. It was he who initiated the governmental changes that increased the power of the king, diminished the authority of the nobility, and established France as a world power.
He demonstrated he was an absolute ruler because he used his power to promote peace. He was Roman Catholic. He didn't force a specific religion. He was engaged in the 30 Years' War, and the outcome for it was that he ended the war through the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. He raised taxes, which led people in France to hate him, including the nobles. And he was most accomplished. He ended the 30-Year War. He restored royal authority to the point where kings could rule alone, and he strengthened the central government.
Louis XIV demonstrated that he was an absolute ruler because he swore to defend the Catholic faith in France. Louis XIV believed in the idea of divine right. He used the belief to justify his authority over the church, which was a great source of power.
The most significant accomplishment of Louis XIII was his establishment of absolute monarchy in France. He used his absolute power to centralize authority, suppress dissent, and expand the French bureaucracy. This allowed him to maintain control over the country and establish the foundation for his successors to continue ruling as absolute monarchs. The condition of the economy under Louis XIII's rule was poor due to the 30 Years' War and the other conflicts. To make his country economically strong, Louis XIII implanted mercantilism policies, such as encouraging domestic manufacturing and trade. These efforts were moderately successful in improving the economy. Louis XIII engaged the 30 Years' War, which ended in French victory and the weakening of the Habsburg dynasty. This war increased France's power and influence in Europe. Louis XIII made the Edict of Nantes, which granted religious tolerance to French Protestants, but later revoked it. This decision helped him maintain power as an absolute ruler by ensuring that the Catholic Church was the dominant religion in France. Louis XIII was an absolute ruler because he centralized power in France and made himself the ultimate authority. He also established the French Academy and expanded the bureaucracy.
It's interesting to think about how much power absolute rulers in France had. They were able to make decisions without any input from their citizens or other officials. While this may have made it easier to get things done, it also meant that the people of France had little say in how their country was run. Overall, it's a fascinating topic to explore.